Have you ever thought of your mind as a highway? Perhaps where there's multiple lanes and there's smaller lanes that you can kind of turn on to. I came across this analogy when reading about the 7-point mind training, one of the core texts of the mind training tradition, this body of teachings. And one of the slogans says, don't rely on the afflictions as your excellent mainstay. So this is somewhat cryptic. These are somewhat cryptic sayings that I think probably make a lot more sense in the original Tibetan. But as the Dalai Lama explains, what this slogan is telling us is to avoid letting the main direction of our minds lead us to the afflictions. We don't devote the major highway of our mind to the afflictions, to the disturbing emotions, thoughts, delusions, ways of thinking that are harmful to ourselves and others. This imagery appeals to me because I can see how it plays out day to day for myself. How the major highway of my mind too frequently leads me towards the afflictions, that I too frequently interpret what is unfolding before me in a way that disturbs my peace of mind, that leads to unnecessary conflict between myself and others. And so I got to watch this unfold in a small way yesterday, where in a casual, polite, calm conversation, someone asked to meet to discuss a project that we're working on together. And they had an idea for a change that they let me know about the next day. So immediately the highway of my mind drove me towards the afflictions. Change? What change? How's this going to affect me? This could create more work for me. What if I don't agree with it? What am I going to do? Why can't I just leave things how they are? So these thoughts, flashed very quickly across my mind, and I could feel my shoulders and my body start to tense and a sense of unhappiness come across me. So quick, zoom, right there, I have low-level aversion and irritation in my mind. So thankfully, I could see how irrational this was and how I was creating my own misery and setting myself up for conflict between myself and others, and also shutting down possibilities. The possibilities for a helpful idea, of learning something new, and also the possibility of connection between myself and the other person that I could feel was shutting down in that moment where I was trying to embrace myself and protect myself from this fear of this unspoken change. So this is a small example that thankfully did not eventuate in any conflict or harmful consequence, at least none that I can see. And as it turned out, the change was something that I agreed with. But there have been too many other examples where I have not been able to catch myself heading down the highway of the afflictions, or I feel justified in accelerating down the route of anger, irritation, arrogance, jealousy, attachment, most often under the reasoning that I'm right. So what this slogan is instead asking me to do, is to cultivate a sensitivity towards what's going on in my mind, so that right away I can notice when the afflictions arise. And so as the Dalai Lama explained, we don't play with them, but rather shut them down immediately. So of course, when I'm triggered with anger, attachment, jealousy, when they arise in my mind, I can't just drop it immediately, not so easily. But the other alternative is not just to stick my hands up in the air and say, it's too late, nothing to do, I'm already driving down Irritation Avenue. Rather, there are so many tools at hand where I can hit the brakes, slow myself down, and make some wise choices about the direction that my mind is going and what types of actions of body and speech that are going to flow from that. So some verses that we've been looking at recently from Shantideva guide us on how to do this. That when we notice our mind is afflicted and disturbed in any way, at that moment we can remain like a piece of wood. We don't speak, we don't act, but rather we attend to the most important task of calming our mind. But even prior to that, Shantideva acknowledges that we must first be able to identify a thief as a thief. So looking at myself, why do I follow the afflictions much more than I wish to? Because I think that they're helping me. My anger is going to protect myself from that crazy person who has an idea of change that might harm me. And my attachment is helping me get that sensual pleasure, those positive feelings in my body and mind that I think is the only sort of happiness that I really know, at least when that moment of craving is strong. So often in the heat of the moment, I don't see these afflicted, disturbed, unsettled states of mind as thieves. and that they steal my virtue, merit, and my peace of mind. And they bring about a whole lot of suffering due to the harmful actions that I do under their influence. Rather, I think that they're getting me what I want, and that they'll bring me happiness. So it's only after I'm driving at high speed down the I-90 of anger and feeling the familiar and thankfully increasingly uncomfortable energy rush and tension in my body that accompanies that anger that I can sense that I've taken a wrong turn. So aside from the imagery itself that I find helpful, this slogan is also a warning about the power of habit energy. I know that I have various triggers that put me into reactive mode where I can't listen to others or really hear what they're saying because my own story about the situation is just playing too loudly. Like with that mention of change, obviously I have some internalized understanding that change can be threatening, unless, of course, it's my own very well thought out, extremely logical, and ultimately beneficial suggestion of change. That one is okay. So it's been interesting to pause and reflect when I see myself making a quick lane change into the afflictions. Like, why is this my automatic response? Why am I so quickly annoyed here? So immediately defensive, so quick to perceive harm and want to protect myself? So just this questioning helps me take my foot off the pedal and to decelerate a bit and see that I would actually be much more safer and more content by switching back into the lane of positive mental states such as gratitude, love, compassion, and respect. And so in reflecting on this, what also comes up is the need for acceptance and a sense of humor. Because right now, the highway of my mind is so easily runs towards the afflictions. I'm getting more skilled at slowing down, changing lanes, pulling back off, taking a rest on the side of the road. But even when I make strong determinations that today I'm going to remain calm and spacious, I'm going to allow what arises and I'm going to greet it with acceptance. Setting that determination helps. And it's leading me closer and closer to being able to do that. But it's a practice. I'm not there yet. So in those moments when I catch myself again and again driving on the I-90 of irritation, anger, or attachment, I need courage and a sense of determination to not get disheartened that I'm not there yet. So on the topic of courage, I'd like to share a quote from a book, Novice to Master, that a few others have mentioned in the BBCs. It's a memoir of the Zen monk, Soko Morinaga. And in the context of the undergoing the rigorous days-long ritual that some Zen monasteries have before they let in disciples, he reflects on the meaning of courage. And I think these words equally apply to the rigorous project that we take on, a project lasting long after we've entered the monastery or have taken refuge or have committed ourselves to practicing the Buddha's teaching and working with our minds. The project of subduing our minds and abandoning the afflictions. He shares, to take the unsettled self in hand under whatever conditions and return to the mind with which one set out. To pick oneself up again after the mind changes, weakens, and breaks down, and stiffens a determination. To carry through the oft reconstructed original vow. Isn't this the meaning of true courage? So may we embrace the ongoing task of watching the mind, cultivating ever stronger mindfulness and introspection that can detect afflictions as soon as they arise, so that we will not be pulled off into the highway of ignorance, attachment, and anger. But also knowing that we're not Buddhas yet, and that we will inevitably be pulled into these unhelpful tracks of mind. Let us have determined courage that does not get disheartened, but once again pick ourselves up and turn towards virtue and positive states of mind, knowing that these lanes, these highways will lead us towards a destination that will bring about our own and others' happiness, that of Buddhahood.